What is going on, everybody? I'm back to talk about a film that was released this year that it's been very interesting because this movie is getting destroyed. I think the Letterboxd average for this movie is like a 2.2. Most of the reviews I saw online were like 1.5 stars, but there are some people online who have adored this movie and that are praising it and talking about how incredible it is. And I always think with polarizing movies like this, especially movies that have quote unquote taboo subject matter, are really interesting because I talked about this in a video recently. But I do think at this period in time in 2024, media literacy is at an all-time low. At least from someone like me who went to school for filmmaking, who understands filmmaking, looking at a lot of reviews and people on TikTok and people who commentate on film, it seems like people don't often understand the nuance of movies and they don't understand intent. And I talk about how important intent is when you're watching a film and digesting a film. Understanding an artist's intent is the most important part to being able to critique a film as a whole. And so I had no idea what I was getting into with this, but I went into it with a completely open mind just to see what I would get out of it and if it was actually as bad as people were saying or if people were misunderstanding it. And I'm really looking forward to talking about this movie with you today. And the film I'm going to be discussing with you is Miller's Girl. Miller's Girl is directed by Jade Halley Bartlett. A precocious young writer becomes involved with her high school creative writing teacher in a dark coming-of-age drama that examines the blurred lines of emotional connectivity between professor and protege. So as I said, a lot of hot button talk around this. People absolutely despised it, said it was one of the worst films of the year. I watched it because I love Jenna Ortega and I think she's incredibly talented. And this movie is not great by any means. It's definitely flawed in a multitude of ways. There are moments that I just downright cracked up laughing at it because of how ridiculous and absurd a lot of it was. But I think it's definitely being misunderstood and taken the wrong way. I don't think this movie is as serious as people are painting it out to be. Like, people are saying, oh, the dialogue is so cringeworthy and ridiculous and people would never talk this way. And I think there's intentionality to the absurdity. I think this is very much like reminiscent of a lot of those like 1990s television dramas. Like, there were even elements of Brian De Palma in this where it's just like absurdish schlock in the way that lines were delivered. Jenna Ortega compares someone to gas station sushi at one point during the movie. And I don't think this is a film that's meant to be taken seriously, but unfortunately in the third act it starts to take itself too seriously. But I'm excited to break the movie down for you today. So at the beginning of the movie, we are introduced to Cairo Sweet, played by Jenna Ortega, who tells us through a monologue sequence that she has very wealthy parents and she lives in this manor that she says she believes is haunted, and she spends all of her time alone reading books, and she's incredibly intelligent. I think she said she has like a 4.5 GPA going into her senior year at high school. She's 18 years old, and we see her going to high school at the beginning of the movie, and when she gets there, we are introduced to Jonathan Miller, played by Martin Freeman, who is an English teacher, and the two of them have a long conversation. He is a published author, and Cairo knows about his work, and the two of them talk, and he's really surprised at how intellectual that she is and how much she knows about literature that the rest of her high school students don't know about. And we learn a little bit more about both of them. We are introduced to Miller's wife, who is constantly working. She's at home all the time, constantly getting bugged, and you can tell that there's an issue in their marriage. The two of them aren't clicking. They don't spend a whole lot of time together. She is constantly drunk, and so the two of them get into a lot of fights. Jonathan spends a lot of time with Boris, who is the school's gym teacher. The two of them are really close. They have a lot of conversations together. And Cairo spends all of her time with Winnie, who is one of her closest friends, and the two of them spend a lot of time together. And early on in the film, Winnie starts talking about her infatuation with the gym teacher and how easy it would be to get her to date the gym teacher. And Cairo decides that she is interested in her English professor and wants to try to make a move on him. And the two of them start having conversations together, and they start forming this relationship. And the film is exploring the complexity in the relationship between these two people and the ramification of a teenager in high school dating their professor. So as I said, this movie got absolutely abysmal reviews, and I can understand why for the most part. if you don't go into this and understand that it's something not meant to be taken super seriously and it's being written in a way that's incredibly campy and stupid and over the top, you will think it's ridiculous. Some of the lines of dialogue don't even feel like they're being spoken by human beings. It feels like someone just reading off of like a fan fiction page, and it's absolutely hysterical. There were so many moments in this that I was just laughing so hard I was about to cry, and that is a compliment. I appreciated that element of the movie. I feel like Jenna Ortega does a really fantastic job in this. She's really committed to this role, as silly and nonsensical as it is, and her motivations, especially towards the third act, feel like they sort of come out of left field in a way that doesn't make a whole lot of sense, but it's still really funny to watch. And Martin Freeman does fine in this movie. I got kind of tired of his southern accent after a while. The southern accents in this definitely are not the greatest. They're all from Tennessee, so they all talk kind of like this, and it gets kind of funny after a while. It feels like a caricature, but I also feel like there's intent in that. And I really loved the first half of this movie. It went in some ridiculous territory that I did not expect. And like I said, there was a lot of laugh out loud moments because, like, I don't think this movie is meant to be perceived as something really serious. It doesn't feel that way in the delivery of the dialogue or the structure or anything like that. It feels like something that's paying homage to a very different time period of filmmaking. And obviously, a lot of the complaints centering around this movie are the fact that it's a high schooler dating their teacher. But unfortunately, when it comes to media literacy, as I talked about at the beginning of the video, you can't make complex films anymore about inappropriate relationships or about anything that's taboo subject matter wise, because people immediately assume that that means that you're supporting that thing. This movie is not that at all. It's not like it's condoning a relationship between a teacher and a student, especially with where it goes in the third act. But I do think it's funny that a lot of people would give it a 1-star review solely because of the subject matter. And it's kind of disheartening because it makes me think that a lot of filmmakers might be afraid to make movies about taboo subject matter. And I think going into the human psychology and studying human psychology is fascinating, and I like challenging movies that push the envelope. And this movie obviously isn't super challenging by any means, but the main issue that I have with this film is the third act. It starts to take itself seriously in a way that it loses any of its trajectory that it's been going on for the first half of the movie. The characters' motivations feel a little lazy, especially towards the end. It's kind of like, how can we wrap this movie up? And it's done in the quickest and most unsatisfying way possible. When the movie ended, I was actually kind of surprised. I didn't really expect it to just kind of end, and the last couple of sequences were really sloppy and poorly written in a way that, yes, the earlier stuff isn't perfectly written, but it's delivered in a way that comes across as really campy and silly, and the third act did not feel like that whatsoever. As far as like the visual presentation of this film, the cinematography has some really great moments and then some really laughable moments, especially in the editing. There were a couple of transitions that I was just scratching my head like, who decided that this was okay? And yeah, honestly, it's not a great movie by any means, but it's really entertaining and dumb, and that's what I loved about it. It did not take itself too seriously early on, and it was really silly, and I loved how kind of like hammy and over the top Jenna Ortega's performance was. Like, she was really going for it in this movie, and Martin Freeman was fine. Like, he didn't really do anything super special. The supporting cast, especially the gym teacher, was absurd. The actress who plays Martin Freeman's wife was fantastic. She was eating up the scenery in a way that was really entertaining. And I thought it was a fun way to spend 90 minutes. Is it life-changing? No. Is there some really bad dialogue in it? Absolutely. But if you're into kind of campy, schlocky movies that don't take themselves too seriously, you'll really enjoy the first 3/4 of this and then probably be underwhelmed by the ending, but I still think it's worth checking out. So have you seen Miller's Girl? Did you love it? Did you hate it? Leave me a comment down below and let me know what you thought. I thought this was super entertaining and dumb in the best way possible. As always, if you can like the video and subscribe to the channel, helps me out a lot and lets me know the type of content you're looking for. I'm always putting out new material and look forward to getting more out for you in the near future. And as always, everyone, thank you so much for watching and have a great rest of your day.